session of the January 19th meeting of the Stafford County Board of Supervisors. Meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Bomke?
Here.
Mr. Cavalier?
Here.
Mrs. Maurer?
Here.
Mr. Milday? Ms. Sellers? Mr. Snelling?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Larry Ingalls to the dais up here. Mr. Ingalls has served on the BZA, that's the Board of Zoning Appeals, during a great time of change in Stafford County. We were just talking about the two-lane roads that he remembers and kind of where we're at today. He served for more than 34 years, from 1981 to 2015. His most recognized contribution was the fact that he's an engineer in his day job, so he was able to bring that flavor of expertise to the BZA. He held many positions and helped guide the county through very difficult growth decisions. For someone like me, it's hard to sit here and really put some weight to what 34 years of service is. I don't mean it in a negative way that I wasn't in kindergarten yet, but that kind of gives you an idea of how long you've been serving the community. And you don't get paid to do it. You do it because it's the right thing, and you do it because you love the community. So the board wanted to give you a proclamation to honor that service. Whereas Larry Ingalls served on the Board of Zoning Appeals for 35 years, from 1981 until 2015, a time of tremendous growth and change in Stafford County. And whereas Mr. Ingalls served as secretary, vice chairman, and chairman during his time on the BZA, and whereas Mr. Ingalls earned a Board of Zoning Appeals certification from Plan Virginia for taking a course that provided an overview of zoning in Virginia and the role the BZA takes in deciding issues involving zoning decisions. And whereas his expert knowledge of engineering and his calm temperament greatly helped the BZA in their often difficult decision-making process. And whereas Mr. Ingalls was co-owner of Sullivan, Donahoe, and Ingalls, a well-regarded local engineering firm from 1971 until his retirement in 2008. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed by the Stafford County Board of Supervisors on this 19th day of January 2016 that it be and hereby does recognize and commend Larry Ingalls for his years of service on the Stafford County Board of Zoning Appeals and his dedication to serving the citizens of Stafford County.
It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Stafford County. As you know, the Board of Zoning Appeals is appointed by the circuit court judges and on the recommendation of the Board of Supervisors. When I was recommended in 1981, Toji Payne, his son is sitting back there in the back, was the chairman, along with Hansford Abel, G.W. Embry, Alvin Bandy, I think it's Charles Warwick and Jim, maybe it was Jim Warwick or Charles Warwick, one of those two, and it was 6 of them. And at the time, we only had 5 members. We met in the old courtroom in the old courthouse over there, and actually, the Freelance Star would send a reporter every month to our meeting, and we met on Tuesday night, and on Wednesday they usually a short article about us. And in the last 30 years, they don't even pay any attention to us because as my wife came one time, she only came twice in 35 years to our meeting, and the last time she came, she said, "I'm not coming back because you were boring." But the BZA, most of our cases, we're serving individual Stafford County citizens that want to come before and seek variances and special exceptions from the zoning ordinance. And so we're really dealing with just one-on-one for most of our issues, and we don't have that many county issues that affect the county as a whole. So we really dealt one-on-one, and I tried my very best to make the right decision. I don't know how many decisions I made. I figured it's somewhere between 500 and 1,000 decisions that we made in 35 years. But you don't make those decisions and do that and stay on a board as long as that without having good support, one from the Board of Supervisors. I look around at all these pictures. I've served under everybody in this room, and I noticed there's a couple that are not in this room that I have served under. But you have to have a good board behind you. They sued the Board of Zoning Appeals a couple times over our decisions over 35 years, but most of the time we were in agreement. And then you got to have a good staff, and I want to thank the current staff of zoning who comes and supports us at our meetings and gives us our packets. They do a super job, and I would certainly like to thank them for their service to us. And you don't also do this without having other good board members. Over the years, I've had a lot of good board members, and a few have come to see me off today. I assume they're either glad or to get me out of here and will make sure I'm leaving, but I appreciate them and all they've done and their expertise in helping me make good decisions for all the people. So I leave you in good hands with the good board, and I thank you, thank you.
Next, we'd like to welcome Mr. Ray Davis. Mr. Davis has just concluded a term on the BZA, during which time he helped navigate difficult zoning decisions regarding certain violations, appeals, and special exceptions. But Mr. Davis also served as the Stafford County General Registrar from 1987 through 2007. One of the things it doesn't say here is Stafford County is known throughout the Commonwealth now for having some of the most fair, efficient, and professional elections anywhere in the Commonwealth. And whenever we go to association meetings, we hear things like that. And certainly Mr. Riddlemoser, the current registrar, deserves a lot of that credit. But his predecessors over the years have put him in a really good situation and given him a good office to take over. So certainly thank you for that as well. We have a proclamation. It says, whereas Mr. Ray Davis is concluding his service on the Board of Zoning Appeals after serving from January 2009 to December 2015, and whereas Mr. Davis earned a BZA certification from Plan Virginia for taking a course that provided an overview of zoning in Virginia and the role the BZA takes in deciding issues involving zoning decisions, and whereas Mr. Davis demonstrated thoughtful consideration and deliberation in the often difficult decision-making process of the BZA regarding appeals of the zoning administrator, determinations, zoning violations, special exceptions for home businesses, as well as variances for zoning ordinances. And whereas Mr. Davis is also commended for his service to Stafford County as its General Registrar from 1987 through 2007 and was a member of the Redistricting Committee in 1990 and again in 2000. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Stafford County Board of Supervisors on this 19th day of January 2016 that it be and hereby does recognize and commend Ray Davis for his dedication and service to the Board of Zoning Appeals and the citizens of Stafford County.
Since I haven't been on the board as long as Larry, don't expect a long speech from me. But I would like to say that I appreciate the opportunity to serve the citizens of Stafford County. There are a lot of volunteers that do a lot of good work in Stafford County. And I also congratulate the Board of Supervisors for their volunteer work and all the other volunteers in the county that try to make the county as good as it is and better. And I also wish to thank the three ladies in the back row back there who do a great job for the staff in providing us the information that we needed to make these decisions. Thank you.
Next, we'll have presentations by the public. At this time, we'd like to invite members of the public who wish to address the board to do so. Each person will have 3 minutes to deliver their comments. We ask that when you come to the podium, you state your name and address. And when you begin your talk, you'll see the green light indicating 3 minutes. When you see the yellow light, that means you have 1 minute remaining. And when you see the red light, that means your time has expired. Anyone on my right wish to address the board? Anyone on the left? Seeing none, we will close presentations by the public. Next, we'll have committee reports by board members.
Mr. Cavalier?
Thank you. I have a few events to pass along that I attended, some with other board members here. First of all, the VDOT meeting that was held last week at Moncure Elementary School, it took into account 3 different projects that is going to be done along the 610 corridor, and those improvements should greatly enhance the traffic flow in that area. It was very well attended, one of the biggest ones I've been to in a long time. It's a good turnout. I think Ms. Maurer was there, Ms. What's her name, Laura? Ms. Sellers, and Mr. Milday. Also, then last week we had a joint FAB Finance and Budget Committee meeting with the schools, where they presented the school CIP, and they had some somewhat significant changes that they wanted to pass along to us. So we'll be undergoing some closer look at that as we progress through the budget cycle here this year. And then today we had a finance and budget meeting where we got a mid-year review for 2016 that Nancy Collins gave, that she will give the entire board here shortly. And last but not least, I attended a grand opening of, they call it Block Advisors now. It was the old H&R Block, but now they're known as Block Advisors. It's an upgrade. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Mrs. Maurer?
Attended a couple of events over the last couple of weeks. First, I'd like to give my heartfelt congratulations and appreciation to our 14 new firefighters that I attended that graduation. It was an incredibly moving speech, and it's wonderful to see these individuals that have been hired to join our county. In addition to that, and it should be noted, that we had out of 798 applicants, they chose 14 that graduated from this academy. So we can be well comforted to know that we have the best of the best that have just joined our team here in Stafford. Also, I attended the VACO new supervisor orientation down in Richmond, and it was well worth the trip. I learned a lot, but most importantly, what I seem to take for granted here in Stafford County, our relationship with the schools and the way we run our business here was actually head and shoulders above some of our other jurisdictions. And so we have a great staff, we have a great team, and it was really eye-opening to see how well we work together in comparison to some of our other jurisdictions. And so what I thought was very logical and easy to see that we do it a certain way here in Stafford turned out to be great ideas in other jurisdictions. So I want to commend my board members on that, and I also want to commend our staff. Also attended the joint finance and budget, and happy to say that I'm really enjoying my first meeting on the finance and budget committee. So I want to thank my colleagues for that, and attended the grand opening of Alpha. It's a new Mediterranean sort of fast food right there on 610. It was well attended. There were a ton of people there, and it looks like they're off to a great start. So I want to welcome them to Stafford County. And that concludes my report.
Mr. Milday?
No, thanks.
Ms. Sellers?
The legislative committee met today. Seems like we're pretty much on par. We'll meet again on Friday to give you guys an update on what's going on in the General Assembly. Public safety also met. We are addressing the firefighters and pretty much the influx of turnover rate that we're seeing this year. And that's all I have.
Mr. Snellings?
I'll defer.
Ms. Baumke?
I only have one item. I actually attended the One Virginia 2021 event at the Falmouth Fire Department, and I'd never been to one of these meetings before, but this was all about redistricting in the state. If anybody's interested, their website is called One Virginia 2021. The 2021 stands for when the General Assembly hopes to vote on the redistricting. I thought it was very interesting that the state of Virginia is the last state in the nation to actually do redistricting. And as we all know, it's very controversial. You know, the Democrats say the Republicans gerrymander, the Republicans say the Democrats, but as you look at the maps in the state of Virginia, it's everybody. Everybody has gerrymandered. And when you look at some of the political districts, it's really unbelievable how they have been gerrymandered. You couldn't draw these lines yourself if you wanted to. So anyway, I'm just hoping that with this process, we can have a more transparent redistricting process. And if you're interested, go to that website. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out for the public that we had a couple of supervisors that were promoted to leadership roles on our committees. Ms. Sellers is now the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and Mr. Cavalier was selected as the chair of the Finance and Budget Committee. In addition, we had a library board meeting, a regional library board meeting, and many of you probably know Martha Hutzel, who was the in charge of the library down in South Stafford. She was actually selected unanimously to lead the entire regional board, regional library system. So that's a great feather in the cap for Stafford County. But she actually made the decision very easy. She interviewed very well. She's from the system and she knows it. So I think the library is in very good hands. I attended the North Stafford Rotary. Mr. Milday was there as well. It's a very, very informed group of people. They don't ask easy questions. They ask the hard questions. So it was a very engaging night, and it's good to know that citizens are paying attention to everything we do, and they're watching to make sure that the decisions we make are in the best interest of the community. So I appreciated being invited out for that. Attended VRE with Mr. Milday as well. And then one last comment. As I left my house this morning to go out and feed the sheep, the dangerously cold weather we had this morning kind of reminded me of our Team Stafford members who just run out there and do their job, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or it's nice and warm. You know, we have people in fire and rescue that don't hesitate to get out there in the cold and do their job. We have deputies that are, patrolling around the clock, facilities and park staff that are making sure that the facilities that you see here are ready to go. And, of course, our school bus drivers. I thought, I remember starting up that diesel engine and waiting 20 minutes for it to warm up. So I just wanted all those people to know that the board does know the sacrifice you do, and you don't hesitate to do your job. We appreciate that. However, maybe at the end of the week, we'll be relying on you to step that game up even more. So I think if Mother Nature sends us a curveball, I know Team Stafford is ready to go. Okay, next we'll have report of the county attorney.
For any comments, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Next we'll have report of the county administrator.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I'd ask Mr. Hoppy and Mr. Rapp to come up for their monthly construction reports, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Christopher Rapp, Director of Public Works. I am pleased to provide the following road construction update. Mountain View Road Phase 2, the contractor has finished the punch list and is waiting for VDOT final acceptance. Mountain View Road Phase 1, the final paving has been complete and the contractor is working on the punch list. Poplar Road Phase 1 and 2, the contractor has finished the punch list and is waiting for VDOT final acceptance. Centerport Parkway, once again, the contractor for that project has opened up the roadway and is waiting for VDOT final acceptance. Poplar Road and Mountain View Road intersection, the negotiations continue with the two remaining property owners, and we're getting cost proposals for the utility relocations. Brook Road, Dominion Virginia Power has been performing a utility relocation, and Verizon will go out as soon as Dominion finishes. We're also working on a draft MOU to relocate the fiber optic line. Truslow Road, the contractor has been working on the cul-de-sac at Old Truslow Road. They've been laying drainage pipe and water line. There is a closure scheduled on Lyons Boulevard tomorrow and Thursday of this week for installation of a drainage crossing. The closure was coordinated with VDOT, Fire Rescue, Sheriff, and schools. And there has been message boards on the roadway alerting drivers of the upcoming closure. And then lastly, on Garrisonville Road, we had the Pardon Our Dust meeting last week. Certificates of take were filed for 16 properties. However, we have had some additional purchase agreements signed, and we continue to negotiate with those property owners. Utility relocations are scheduled to begin later this month, and that concludes my presentation.
Any questions for Mr. Rapp? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Chris Hoppy, Capital Improvement Program Manager, to give you a report on Parks project status. The Jeff Rouse Swim and Sports Center, the interior HVAC equipment, duct, and sprinkler piping is complete. The interior painting continues. As the above ceiling inspections are completed, the ceiling tiles are dropped into place. The installation of the gas line by Columbia Gas and the permanent power by Dominion Virginia Power have both been completed. All 3 pool shells are complete. The large pool gutter is done. The warm-up pool and wellness pools have both received their coping and tile. Piping to the filter rooms has been completed and backfilled. At this point in time, the pool contractors moved off-site for a period while the general contractor has started major work in the large pool space to install above-ceiling painting, HVAC ducts, lighting, bleacher pad concrete, and the like. Parking lot paving is about 60% complete and continues as weather permits. The Emery Mill Park athletic fields are substantially complete, and the contractor continues to work on the punch list items. Belmont Ferry Farm Trail, the construction of the Belmont Crossing project is substantially complete. Inspection by VDOT is to be scheduled. VDOT has authorized us to begin right-of-way acquisition for the Phase 4 trail. At this point, the title search is underway, and a letter's been drafted to the one property owner to ask for permission to come on site to do the assessment and evaluation. We needed to update some information, some geotechnical information on our construction plans, so they got delayed in their submission to VDOT, but that should still occur this week for construction plan review, so that the plans are ready when the right-of-way stuff catches up. National Park Service is still working on the agreement across their property. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoppy. Yep. Ms. Baumke?
Yeah, at some point I'd like to talk to you a little bit more, although this is in Bob's district, but we're kind of working on it jointly. The new, I don't know if you want to call it a speed bump slow down over there on, is that Carter Street? No,
Washington Street.
Washington Street. Yeah, because as you know, one of the constituents has raised some issues, so maybe we can, and I went out there and was actually sitting at the road watching people, some slow down, some don't. It's going to be interesting, so we can talk about that later.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple other quick items. One bit of trivia. Mr. Rapp mentioned that Centerport Parkway is almost done. That was the first county-built road, and you may not realize this, but it's Route 8900. We selected that number because the Prince William County Parkway is Route 3000 and the Fairfax County Parkway is Route 7100, so we wanted to make sure that we were higher than our 2 localities to the north. So that's for Route 89, your trivia for the day. Late last year, Mr. Milday asked for a discussion item regarding a transportation district styled after what Hampton Roads has, and we'll be bringing that to the Infrastructure Committee at your first meeting or February meeting, and then to the board after that. The Highway Department just released HB2 scoring. Mr. Rapp and his staff are in the throes of reviewing that. We'll also be bringing that to the Infrastructure Committee and to the board as we've had a chance to decipher those. Those were released just within the last few minutes. There is one addition to the agenda, that's item number 29 from Mrs. Baumke, which would approve the appointment of Mr. Greg Kalangian as the Falmouth District Representative to the Telecommunications Commission. That concludes my report.
Thanks, sir. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of item 29? Motion by Ms. Sellers.
Second.
Second by Ms. Baumke. Please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next we have consent agenda. Are there any items that members wish to pull from consent?
18.
Mr. Milday is 18. Hearing no more.
Move approval minus 18.
We have a motion for consent minus 18 from Mr. Milday, seconded by Ms. Sellers. Please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Milday, number 18.
It's just, I think it's noteworthy and very nice that someone donated a lot in Crow's Nest Harbor to the county. So I wanted to kind of take it off I just wanted to take it off the consent so we could take a minute to be grateful that somebody did that. How do we thank a person for that, in addition to whatever tax benefits they might get?
We could certainly send him a note on behalf of the board if you'd like.
That would be nice. 'Cause I think it's a big deal.
And no tax bill is a nice thank you.
You can also do a proclamation.
Oh.
I think a letter from the chairman or the board would be fine.
Okay, we'll do that. We have a motion.
Second.
Yes.
You seconded it. Okay, motion by Mr. Milday, seconded by Ms. Baumke. Please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Vote passes 7-0. Next item, 22, Public Works, grant permanent access to public right-of-way on Bonnie Lee Court, Griffiths Widewater District.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Towery with the Department of Public Works will make the presentation. Mr. Towery is on loan from the Department of Utilities. He's our acting assistant director in the position previously occupied by Steve Hubble.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jason Towery, Acting Assistant Director of Public Works. I'll be speaking with you briefly this afternoon on the issue of Bonnie Lee Court. This matter was before the board in October of last year on the October 6th meeting. The public hearing was closed at that time and subsequently deferred. The topic was deferred to allow further discussion on between the parties. The matter involves access to a public right-of-way to allow subdivision of tax map parcel 20-58. The parcel currently fronts on Ebenezer Church Road. The proposed subdivision requests access to the adjoining Bonnie Lee Court. Bonnie Lee Court was never accepted into the state system due to developer default, and the county does not hold sufficient security to complete the necessary work. The right-of-way was dedicated to the county, making it necessary for the board to take action if permanent access is to be granted for this parcel. The property owners have since discussed the issue with Supervisor Cavalier and with the residents of Bonnie Lee Court. All parties have agreed that a mutually agreeable solution could involve the property owners contributing towards the maintenance of Bonnie Lee Court. Proposed resolution R-1628 grants the property permanent access to Bonnie Lee Court subject to the execution of an agreement with the county where the owners are required to contribute towards road maintenance activities. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Curious.
Mr. Milday?
It'll be an ongoing, like an HOA type of arrangement. It would never end perpetuity, or is it going to? Is it a goal to bring it up to standards and turn it over to the state?
There is an existing HOA right now, but it doesn't collect any money from the 7 original lots that were there, so they have no pool of resources. What this will allow us to do, this agreement will allow us to use the $11,000 or so in securities that the original developer who went out of business sold this property originally had put toward the road being accepted into the VDOT system. That money would be used along with a remaining amount from the applicant to resurface the road as it is right now, which it is a private roadway, but it does have public access. So I mean, it's a cul-de-sac, so nobody drives down it. The school bus uses it, basically, probably the only other people beside the residents. And this would provide a resurfaced road. It's been there for quite some time and is in need of some repairs. But it would still, at this point, maintain its private road status, and we could, at a later juncture, if necessary, apply for VDOT to take it into their system. But this arrangement was agreed to by both the applicants and the property owners who I met with on more than one occasion. So we finally ironed out the specifics of this last night, and the specifics aren't written down. We're going to allow the staff to go ahead, but everyone is in full agreement.
Staff mentioned maintenance. I'm just curious, I can go along with this either way, but is this going to be a fix, put some money into the road and then that's the end of this deal, or is there a maintenance component to this arrangement?
The applicant has wants to initiate a road maintenance agreement, but has to have buy-in from the other residents on the street. There's 7 original. This will add 2 houses to that, so there'll be a total of 9 there, so that they could all then contribute to a road maintenance agreement, but that is not in place yet.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
I did have a question. You mentioned 2 houses, and we talked about that briefly. Did we actually impose that as a condition, or is that just kind of an agreement?
That is the agreement. That is the proffer amendment. That would 2 houses maximum. Is that not correct? That's my understanding.
My understanding is that at the October hearing, the applicant offered the 2 lots.
Yeah, and there's like 19 acres to work with, so this is less than. I think they could have got 6 in there if they wanted to, but they're only proposing 2 at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Right. I knew they agreed to that, but I just didn't see the actual proffer language in the packet unless I missed it.
We will go back and take a look at that.
Okay. I just don't read it that way currently.
Mr. Chairman, it does mention the maintenance requirement as Mr. Cavalier pointed out, but I don't see the language with respect to the 2 lots.
Limiting to 2. The applicant is here. We could ask him to stipulate that.
I wonder, and I think that would be good. I wonder, Mr. Chairman, if we could just delay this for a few minutes. Why don't we clean up the resolution, and we could still take care of it today if the board would be agreeable, just to make sure we've got that language incorporated.
Sure. I think we should do that. Okay, any other questions, though, before we put this on the table? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, new business, number 23, planning and zoning, authorize the county administrator to amend a deed of gift to the Greater Fredericksburg Habitat for Community, Rock Hill District.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll start this, and Mr. Harvey is here for questions, as is Mr. Tom Carlson, who's the executive director of Habitat for Humanity, Greater Fredericksburg Habitat for Humanity. Back in 2011, the board authorized 2 lots to be conveyed in the Lake Arrowhead subdivision in the Rock Hill District to Habitat for Humanity. At the time, those lots were paired with 2 other lots for a total of 4 lots, and the restriction was put on the lots to allow only 2 homes on the 4 lots. Habitat for Humanity has sent in a request to ask for an additional home to be built, or to have that restriction be lifted. I do want to correct something that's in the background report. The soil study that was done is quite dated. The health department requires a soil study to be done within 18 months of a permit being issued, and so Habitat will need to have soil studies done to ensure that the property perks. If the perk study comes back that the property isn't sufficient for a septic system, then the county won't issue a building permit. So I just want to ensure and advise the board that we're not in any way creating a pump and haul situation. This would be a viable septic system, assuming that the site perks and the health department approves it. The restriction would be lifted. Habitat for Humanity intends to consolidate the 2 lots and build a small 2-bedroom house on one of those. We recommend approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Ms. Maurer, this is in your district, so what's your pleasure?
A motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion for R1631. Please cast your vote. We have a second by Ms. Sellers. Tally the vote.
Wait. Sorry.
Okay, recast your votes, please. Tally the vote. Vote passes 7-0.
Mr. Chairman, if you will indulge me for 2 seconds, I want to thank Mr. Carlson for the work that he does. This is a great service to the community. It's a hand up, not a handout. And I myself was a recipient of an Officer Next Door home program. And I can fully attest that this does change people's lives. So thank you.
Okay, item number 24, Finance and Budget, FY 2016 mid-year review and release of the 5% appropriations hold. Ms. Collins, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am Nancy Collins, Budget Division Director, and here to report on our finances at mid-year and also ask the board to release the 5% appropriation hold for both schools and county and to budget and appropriate some funds for our parks project. At mid-year, I'm pleased to report that revenues are on track. It looks like we're going to be slightly above budget. A slight caveat, part of it is one-time money that we won't be seeing again, but it's, the things that that lately we've been talking about as being strong are true again this year. Personal property, sales tax, meals tax, development activity, ambulance fees continue to be strong. On the expenditure side, we had some challenges. The budget included some savings from the closing of Woodlands Pool for the winter and in the current year, and that won't happen until next year. So there'll be some additional operating costs that we'll absorb in the budget using the contingency. Children's Services Act expenditures, one thing that we talk about frequently as being over budget. I'm pleased to report that this year they are tracking closely with the budget. Health insurance is tracking slightly above budget. We asked the board to reserve the savings from 2014 as a hedge against additional costs in health insurance, and at this time it appears like we're going to have to dip into that, but that the reserve is sufficient to cover our projected costs. And I will say that the county and the schools are right now pursuing an RFP for joint health services, health insurance services, and that is underway right now. We also budgeted managed attrition of $1.1 million in the current year, and we will achieve that goal. Fire and Rescue is experiencing some staffing challenges. They have larger than usual turnover, and because their hiring process is lengthy and robust and they have academy requirements, it takes a while to get firefighters up and going and ready on the street. So what they are doing now to meet the coverage needs is their staff is working extra overtime. So we are expecting that their overtime budget will be, their overtime expenditures will be over budget. And we're going to find savings in salaries and other operating lines to cover that. We're also reviewing options to solve the problem in the future. We're looking at the public safety staffing plan, the compensation study that was done last year, and overfills are currently being approved. We anticipate that we will include some of these options in the FY17 budget proposal, and if the board approves them, we think our mid-year projections indicate that if the board would wish to advance the solutions before July 1st, that opportunity will exist in the current year. The board in November amended the financial policies to enhance them and increased the reserve, the revenue stabilization reserve requirement from 0.5% of general fund revenues to 2% by 2018. We are projecting some positive results of operations this year that would go into that fund according to the fiscal policy's funding formula, and that is something that the rating agencies would look favorably on. So I mentioned parks bonds. In order to minimize our borrowing costs, it's our policy to borrow for 2 years with 2 years worth of parks or bond expenditures, and then ask the board to budget and appropriate the money as we need it. Last summer we borrowed $2.7 million for the next phase of Emery Mill Park. Now we are asking the board today to appropriate bond proceeds in the amount of $115,000 to be used to construct a playground and also to amend the design so that we'll be ready for the next phase. And we would expect the actual construction to begin in the summer, and we would bring it back to the full board to appropriate the rest of the bond proceeds at that time. The school board has requested full release of their 5% appropriation hold, and we expect the school board to bring an item to the board in February to discuss the unspent FY15 carryover monies, including funding for the school buses. So the action that we're asking for today is proposed resolution R1621 budgets. It releases the 5% appropriation hold, and it appropriates the bond proceeds in the amount of $115,000 for the next phase of Emery Mill Park. And proposed resolution 1640 releases the school's 5% appropriation hold. And we recommend approval of those.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mr. Snellings?
The carryover money from the schools, are you referring to the 8.3 million?
Yes, sir.
Do we know if, and this may be an unfair question for you, but do we know if they've hired an auditor?
The audit is underway. The forensic
Right.
auditor, right? The financial audit is complete. But yes.
Forensic audit is underway.
It's
So
underway.
they'll come back to us in February, you said, with a report.
With a request, right?
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, there were a couple of questions at the board's finance committee meeting with respect to the playground.
Okay, please.
One was, does it include swings? And I'm happy to report it does. The second one was a question about the surface and if it's ADA compliant. It is an ADA compliant surface. It's a very finely graded wood mulch, so you can roll a wheelchair over top of it. We were asked about a more permanent surface. Some of the playgrounds in the county, particularly at our schools, have a hard rubber or a ground up rubber surface, but it makes for a very hard surface. We'd be happy to add that. That's about a $50,000 add to the price. So if the board would like to do that, we would need to add that number, or add to the 115 an additional 50,000. That's the delta between that and the wood mulch surface. I just wanted to bring that to you.
Okay, any questions on that particular item? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the county portion, which is R16-21.
I'd like to move for R16-21.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, do we have any discussion on this item? Ms. Bonke?
Yeah, so I was the one that brought up the item regarding the ADHA. So Mr. Romanello, so from your conversation right now and our conversation just a little bit ago, you found out that the delta's 50,000.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Turns out Mr. Southall had received a quote, and it is a $50,000 difference for the permanent surface versus the wood mulch.
Wow. Well, and I think one of the other things that the board might want to consider, the other thing that Mr. Romanello brought up is the ongoing maintenance of having that surface is much easier for the Parks and Rec Parks and Rec Department to maintain that, because basically all you have to do is hose it off. You don't have to replace the mulch every year. You don't have to, basically they'd have to go out there and pick up the trash, and that's about it. But, it is $50,000, and that's something we'd have to consider.
So are you proposing an amendment to the motion or not?
I'm on the fence.
We could revisit this in the future if after discussion, or contemplating, we come back and decide that is something we wanted to do.
You can, and the surface, our hope was to open the playground with the St. Patrick's Day tournament. But we can change the surface of the playground at a later date if that's the pleasure of the board.
Okay, Mr. Snellings?
The other playgrounds in the county, what type of service do they have? Okay, so
I'm told both.
I wouldn't want to get in a situation where somebody's hauling parity. I've got to have it here because I've got it over there. So, thank you.
Okay, so we have the original motion, which is R16-21 on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, please cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, we'll entertain a motion on the school portion, which is R16-40. Moved by Mr. Cavalier. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sellers. Please cast your vote. Any discussion on that? Okay, cast your vote. Tally the vote. That motion passes 7-0. Next item is 25. County Administration endorse a Stafford County Multicultural Coalition. I think we have Mr. Doug Taylor here to address the board. this is something that's been in the works for quite a while, and it's the first time it's making it to the board level. So what we will probably do is, after the presentation, to give us an idea of what we're looking at and let the community hear about it for the first time, we'll probably send it to our Community and Economic Development Committee to work with you to kind of figure out what it is we're looking at, budgets and things like that. So I just want to let you know that.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Doug Taylor, and I represent the newly formed Stafford Multicultural Coalition. I would just like to take a few seconds to introduce the members of the coalition. And first of all, we have our newly minted Sheriff David Decatur. Secondly, we have Mrs. Valerie Cunningham. She's the Public Information Officer from Stafford Public Schools. Reverend Felicia Allen from Agape Fellowship Ministries. Pastor Michael Oluwabumi. Pastor Michael from Amazing Grace Sanctuary. Mrs. Catherine Shalaby from Developmental Consulting Services, and last but not least, MC Moncure, the Stafford County Tourism Manager. She has really gone above and beyond, I'll use my military term, above and beyond the call of duty to help get this thing off the ground. In this past Sunday's opinion section of the Freelance Star, there's an op-ed concerning the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King once said that a riot is the language of the unheard. In my opinion, I think that possibly explains some of the recent civil unrest that we've seen in this country, like in Baltimore and Ferguson, Missouri. Sometimes all folks want is to be heard, an opportunity to be heard. And they also want people to attempt to understand where they're coming from, to see their perspective of things. And the reason we formed this coalition is to proactively give all citizens of Stafford County an opportunity to voice their needs and concerns. Our process, we're going to use community building models and methods to get this done. And basically, we want to promote Stafford County as increasingly welcoming. There's a little book that says Stafford is home to all. To be increasingly welcoming, representative, and responsive to the needs of the citizens. So on behalf of the coalition, I'd like to express our gratitude for your consideration of the resolution endorsing the Stafford Multicultural Coalition.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Very good job.
Sure.
Okay, so as I stated earlier, I would like the Community and Economic Development Committee to take this up at their earliest convenience. Good. Closed session, I believe. Next item is
Closed session.
closed session.
Whereas the board desires to hold a closed meeting for, 1, consultation with legal counsel regarding probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the board, and 2, consultation with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding a specific legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, and whereas pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711 A7, such discussions may occur in closed meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Ms. Sellers. Please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Board will now convene in closed session. Do we have a motion to certify the closed meeting? We have a motion by Ms. Sellers. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Baumke. Please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. We're going to circle back to item 22, which was the permanent access to the public right-of-way in Bonnie Lee Court. We have an updated resolution. Mr. County Administrator, could you give us a synopsis on that?
Mr. Towery, do you want to handle this? We've added language with respect to the 2 lots. Is that correct? It should your place, ladies and gentlemen, R16-28R.
Correct. Yes, we've added additional language at the end. Thank you. Just to clarify that there would be no more than 2 lots accessible off of Bonnie Lee Court.
Okay. Draw your attention to the second to last paragraph. That's where you'll find that. Let's see, this is in Mr. Cavalier's district. What's your pleasure?
I'd like R16-28R.
Okay, motion by Mr. Cavalier, second by Mr. Milday. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. And if we could hit number 29 real quick, the county administration approve appointment of Mr. Greg Kolangian as the Falmouth representative to the Telecommunications Commission. You should have a board bank application in your add-on. Ms. Baumke, would you like a motion?
Move for approval.
Second by Ms. Sellers. Please cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. The board will be recessed till the 7 o'clock session.